The first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we remove the top of the crate. Now keep in mind, I will repeat this several times, everything is nailed on this crate for the KX T1501 machine to be uncrated, so please be careful of the very sharp screws. So we're removing the top of the crate first. The next thing we want to do is locate the back of the machine. Now keep in mind that the back and the front will have the label that says SWF. If you're opening the back of the machine, the actual shipping label will be on the left hand side, so keep that in mind. So ideally we want to remove just the back side of the crate. Again, we're using the pry bar on each side. You're going to pull it down. Okay, this is going to allow us to get access to the table that comes with the machine, as well as the accessory boxes, to get those removed first. So you're going to get the back of the crate completely removed off of the crate, and then inside what you're going to find is the machines are actually vacuum sealed from the factory. So keep in mind they do spend a couple of months of their life coming across the Pacific Ocean. Therefore there's a lot of moisture and of course salt air that they got to worry about. This prevents any rust or damage to the equipment during shipping. We're simply removing the back of the bag. The table is shrink wrapped to the machine, so once we get that cut and out of the way, you're just going to start removing the boxes that's inside. So that is your table. If you ever want to use it on the machine to make it a flat surface, like doing border frames or patches. Next, simply remove our hoop box and just set it to the side and out of the way. Underneath the stand of the machine, you're going to find the accessory box. So once we get it out of there, we're going to be able to start removing the wood that's on the base of the crate. Keep in mind again, everything is actually nailed into place. So they use the wood to cross over top of the legs of the machine, and this is where the casters and the leveling feet are. And we're going to get these boards removed and completely out of the way. From there, you're going to find on the base of the crate, the leveling feet are actually down, just to give it more stability during shipping. So you should be able to grab those and turn them up. Next, make sure you have somebody to help you. The machine is extremely heavy, so carefully with two people, we want to unload from the back. Now if you do accidentally uncrate the front of the machine, that's no big deal. You can just go to the back and uncrate it from there so you can get to the boxes. Again, the machine is heavy. You're going to need assistance with this, and all you're doing is moving it off the base down onto the floor, and at this point it'll be setting on its wheels. You can move it into place. It is already mounted to the stand of the machine, and you'll be ready to assemble your thread rack and start setting your machine up. After the machine has been uncrated, what you want to do is assemble the thread tree. Okay, this is where the cones of thread set on the base of the machine and come up through to be fed into the tension base of your machine. In the box, what you're going to find is the 4 rods. Okay, and the tools you will need is a 2mm Allen and a 4mm Allen. These tools you can find in your toolbox that comes with your equipment. Just make sure everything is tight and assembled. You will find that the tubes that connect the thread tree down to the tension base will be hanging with the thread down, and that's what we're going to cover next, is the threading of your new machine. Once the thread tree is attached to the machine, I'm ready to start the threading process. Again, what you'll notice before the thread tree was attached, the tubes are attached to the top of the tension base and the machine is threaded from the factory. It's wrapped around the thread holders that are down here at the bottom of the machine, so those can be unwrapped, and then you attach the tubes to the top of the thread tree. Now, if you pay attention to all SWF machines, it is numbered from right to left, that is 1 through 15. So understanding the position of the cones of thread, all you ever have to remember is It is the furthest cone to the right is number 1, the furthest cone to the left is 15, and simply follow that order. On this particular model, it is needle 1, needle 2, needle 3, 4, 5, 6. It is simply front to back, right to left, completely in order from 1 to 15. Keep in mind that if the thread is setting on the first row, it will only go through one eyelet of the thread tree. If it is setting on the second row, it will go through 2 eyelets of the thread tree. And of course, the third row will be 3. And if you look at the thread, they will always be coming straight forward, never at an angle. So right to left, front to back on this particular model. And again, follow the holes, and they're always straight up from where the cones of thread are setting. Now from there, from the factory, like I said, it's already threaded. So what you're going to do is attach the tube to the thread tree. The thread is attached. From here, we're going to put on our new cone of thread. Now, something else that may need to be explained, we're setting our cone of thread here on the machine. A lot of people do not understand that these are called cone holders. Depending on what you embroider, depending on the surface that you level your machine on, whether it is carpet padding or concrete or linoleum or something like that, the machines produce a lot of vibration, so it is important that they get leveled before operation. But the cone holder is actually designed to slide up and down and be flared out, so regardless of what cone of thread that you're physically using, down it just sets down on the base and you can get wobble. But if you pull it up, depending on the cone that you're using, and then push it down, it locks the cone completely down to the base. Now from there, we're going to take the thread and we're going to go through the back of the thread tree. Now this is setting on the third row. This happens to be needle number 15. So we go through the eyelets from the back to the front. When we get to here, we do have a tension knob system. Even though this is an automatic tensioning system on this machine, on the thread tree, we do have a tensioning knob system here. So the thread's going to go through, it goes to the right between the 2 discs. And then from there, you start with the thread that's already in the machine. You can tie these 2 threads together. And then from the bottom where it's already threaded, just make sure nothing gets tangled, all you're going to do is pull that thread through and repeat this process on all 15 needles, and then you'll need to set down and of course thread the needles on your machine. And once you're done, your machine will be threaded. Once the thread is pulled through down at the bottom, what we have here below the numbers that you see on the machine from 1 to 15, this right here is the thread clamping system. This holds the thread when the heads are turned off. This is actually a more important system on the multi-head machines than it is the single head. So what you do is you pull the pin forward, the thread goes to the right and then behind the clip for the thread holding system. Now from there, I need to use tweezers because of the size of my fingers. You're going to put the thread behind the thread guide. This thread guide keeps the thread in line with the front of a needle that actually has a groove that runs top to bottom. We're going to cut the thread so you can thread it. Now, a little trick that you should know is if you hold thread tight and you cut that thread, it's always going to fray at the end. What you want to do is hold the thread very loose and cut it at a little angle, and that will always give you a sharp edge of the thread so that you can come through, find the eye of that needle. Once you're through the back, grab. Now on this particular model machine, on the KX series machines, the presser feet are individually driven by its own motor and reciprocator system. On any other model other than the KX, you want to feed the thread through the presser foot and then back up. But on this model, you just simply want to bring the thread up to there. The correct amount to start threading is about 1 inch above that clamp system. And do this to all 15 needles, and your machine is now threaded. Now, preparing your machine for the first time you're going to power up or start the equipment. You'll notice this is the OP box on the machine. It comes with a protective piece of cardboard. There's tape on each side. It's usually swiveled in when you're taking it out of the crate. So you're just going to bring that around. Now, underneath the bottom of this, there is two connectors. One is a small power connector. This is a 24-volt supply to the OP box. The other is a Cat 7 cable. This is the data cable. Make sure that these connections are good. Nothing happened from the shipping process. Inside your accessory box, you are going to find your cable. It is roughly about a 12-foot cable, so you got plenty of length and room there. This is a standard PC connection cable for power on one end and a 110 grounded outlet on the other. I do advise that you normally take these apart and do check the connections, make sure they're nice and tight from the factory, make sure there was no issues there. Keep in mind, if you were to lose this or anything happened, something happened to it, a standard PC cable is going to operate this machine all day long. This simply plugs into the side. We're going to run this, of course, to our outlet. And then from the front here, what you're going to find is our box. You can position, you can see how it swivels here at the bottom. It actually pivots top to bottom. These are 5mm bolts. This is a 3mm. So keep that in mind, because once you have it positioned where you want it to be, you want to make sure this is locked into place. Do not keep this loose so it can vibrate around or move on the machine. So I'm going to release the tape on one side. I'm going to come around, get the tape off on the other side. So we can now see our nice touch panel screen that's been protected from shipping. Now you will notice that there is still a clear film over the top of this. This can be removed at any point in time, which we will do later. Our USB ports are located here on the front, as well as additional ports directly underneath the bottom. Now from there, we're going to plug the machine on and power it up. Okay, once you confirmed all the connections on the machine, which are the two underneath the OP box and of course the power plug and connection, and we're ready to power the machine up. A couple of things to keep in mind when dealing with the KX T1501. This is a brand new startup out of the crate, out of the box. Remember that the OP box, it swivels, it can tilt up and down. So if you want the OP box to be straightforward, it does need to be pretty much vertical, straight up and down. Or you can have it at an angle, but you do need to pivot it slightly outwards to the right if you're in front of the machine. The reason being is it's pretty close to the actual tension base itself. When it goes to needle 15, we do not want these two things hitting each other. So most of the time I do like it straight. Just leave it at an angle so there's clearance here that when this changes colors, there's no option that it's going to hit it. Once our connections and everything are good, our on-off switch is located directly behind the OP box on the frame of the machine. Okay, so we're plugged in, we're ready to go. We're ready to turn it on. Nope, not quite yet. You also have what's called an emergency stop switch here. A lot of people think the machine will not even power up. A lot of times from shipping and uncrating, this switch is activated, meaning it's pushed in. So they hit the green button, nothing happens, they think their new machine doesn't work. So always confirm that your emergency stop is unlocked. So a small turn to the right, it unlocks it, the switch is out, in is off, out is on. Now from here we're going to turn the switch on, that is in the up position, and then from there we hit the green button. This energizes the breaker on the machine, and the machine then starts to boot up. Okay, so once the machine is powered up, this is the normal screen that you would see. There's simply no design loaded inside of it. Additional videos to follow will be covering all the operation and functions of the machine. Now, on the first startup, keep in mind there is a couple of error messages that may appear, and it's no big deal. This normally happens from the shipping or the uncrating process. The first one is going to be the color change system. This is called an error 300. If you notice right here, I slightly turn this knob for the color change manually, and you'll see that the machine will start beeping at me. I get the error 300 on here. What I always like to do is not just hit the fix button, because the machine will actually fix itself. I like to grab the knob and just turn it a couple of rotations left or right, and just to make sure it's free. There's no issue. You'll see the head is moving. If you hit the position dead on, the error will go away. But if you're not on, and we know it's nice and free, you can simply hit fix, and you can see that the machine will actually correct itself. That's simply because it got moved out of position from the shipping or uncrating process. Another error that may appear on your brand new equipment once it's uncrated and assembled and you think you're ready to go is the error 100. This is simply saying that the machine's degree wheel is not on 100, which is its home or fixed position. The machine is able to correct and fix itself. Now keep in mind, this degree wheel is on the KX 1501, is on the left hand side of the machine, top of the frame. Okay, and it can be turned manually with a 6mm Allen wrench, but in this scenario we simply hit the fix button. The machine's going to rotate and actually correct itself. Again, these errors you may occur simply because of the shipping or uncrating process of the machine getting moved around. So there's nothing to worry about. Simply correct the problem and we're ready to move forward. Again, for the error 100, the degree wheel is located on the top left-hand side of the frame of the machine. Inside the little sight window is where the 100 mark is. It's actually in red with the red arrow. So when it's not on 100, the machine's going to beep. It's going to give you the fixed error position of 100. You do have fix on the control panel. Or here, you simply make sure it's back on the red mark and your error message goes away. Okay, now that the machine is uncrated, assembled, we have it threaded and powered up. We've checked all of our connections, no issues. What we're ready to do is prepare it for sewing for the first time. From the factory, what you'll notice, it has the tubular arms on it as well as the cap driver. This is the cylinder system that allows you to sew hats. You do not use both of these systems at the same time. This is just mounted on here for when they shipped it. So first thing we're going to do is remove our cap driver. There's two screws underneath, thumb screws underneath the bottom. You loosen a couple of turns. These screws do not have to be removed. You do the same with the two screws on the top. Now from there you can pull that cap driver simply straight off, come up, a little bit of angle, and now that cap driver is off the machine. There'll be an additional video on this as far as mounting properly, hooping caps, and sewing production. Now what's left on the machine is our tubular arms. This is what our hoop snapped into to create a design. What we're looking at now, this is the cylinder bed of the machine. The new KX series machines, of course, is a lot smaller cylinder bed. What's mounted on the top of this in the front is the needle plate. With the rod you see underneath the bottom, this is the center support rod for when the cap driver system is on there. We're going to open the front cover. Now from the factory, what you will see is that inside the rotary hook there is actually a felt pad, and it was oil soaked from the factory and kept in there for storage. So that of course is going to be removed. This is our picker system on the machine. It's going to be in the correct position and everything when the machine is purchased, so there's nothing that needs to be done here. Next we're going to do is look at our bobbin case. So this is a standard bobbin case with the pigtail, the little hinge door to remove. This is what goes inside the rotary hook. Now from the factory uses and tests the machine with metal bobbin cases. They wind their own bobbin. So in that case there's a little tension spring on the inside. Unless you're winding your own bobbins, this spring is never ever needed inside the bobbin case itself. So we're going to take a standard LV15 bobbin. This is a Coates, whether it's Coates or Fieldtech or any generic bobbin. First thing you're going to do is make sure, if you're holding it in your hand, that that bobbin is spinning clockwise. Now from there, I'm going to look at the bobbin case. There's a center post on the back side. The front has the hinge door and the pigtail that's straight up. So we want the pigtail up and away from us. We want the post towards us. And then you're going to slide the bobbin into the case. And then you'll see there's a little 5 o'clock slot. It goes there, it comes up and clips underneath the tension spring on the side. This is where we feel if the tension is good. Now, if you know it's threaded correctly, if you're looking at the back side or the entire bobbin, it will actually be spinning clockwise. When it's inside the machine and you were to pull the thread, you would see that it spins counterclockwise. This is the direction that all stitches are created on all rotary hook sewing machines. Now from there, if the tension is correct, I'm going to wrap the pigtail from the back to the front, from the bottom up through the top. Hold it down over the front, take your thumb and forefinger. Got 3 fingers left, call it the 3-finger rule. It leaves 3 inches of thread no matter how big or small your hand is. Or you can use scissors. Always, always, when inserting, make sure you hear the click. So in other words, never use this door that you use to remove the bobbin to put it back in. It may not lock into place and you're going to get an instant bird's nest when you try to run your machine. So, in, always hear the click, hold the thread, and now we're going to prepare a hoop to test sew the machine for the first time and start talking about the functions of your operations panel. Now that the machine is almost prepared to sew and ready for production, what we're going to do is go over the basic operations of the OP box. You'll notice it is a large display. It is a touch screen. Down here along the bottom, every icon that you physically see, these are the function keys. This is where we perform all of our functions. The icons you see on the right hand side are our manual tools. For example, manual color change, doing a manual trim, our frame for our data origin and origin, needle down functions, and frame movement. These can also be found, the majority of, down here on this manual keypad that is separate. It's either found usually mounted below the OP box or to the right hand side. So what we're going to do is start with the very basics of your machine. So to run an OP box on an SWF, there is 4 steps to production. And the good part is they are actually in order. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the function. First is design. You have to load the design into the machine, okay? In this case, we're going to use the USB, which is most common, but SWF does have a SENS network where you can connect this machine with a CAT cable and send the design, or you can even send wirelessly through a wireless hub. But for these purposes, we're just going to use a thumb drive, which is still pretty standard in the industry. This is through design. Setting and design settings is where we're going to do our angle. That is either right side up or upside down. You'll notice just the display showing right now is upside down, so that actually tells me that the design is setting at 180 degrees, as well as right here, this is all information is showing me 180 degrees. Okay. Next function is needles. This is where we program our colors. And the most important one is frame. This is where we do our trace, knowing the design fits inside the hoop and we don't hit the hoop. Okay, the machine can sew through 1/4 inch thick leather. It cannot sew through plastic and metal. It will be damaged and not covered under warranty. This is operator error. Okay, so keep in mind the function keys are in order. The information on the screen over here, we have the total stitch count that the machine has done, the total work that the machine has done. This is the stitch count of the current logo. This is the size. If you notice, it's in the metric system. All machines are made overseas. However, with the new MS and KX series machines, if you simply touch that, you can convert it to inches, which makes a lot more sense for us Americans. Okay, down below there, it's how many colors are in the design, how many jump stitches, what the angle is set at, and you see that we did not change the scale. These numbers right here indicate what colors are programmed to sew. Right now for this design, under needle, it's just programmed as needle 1, and of course here is our speed. Okay, so to start, we're going to insert our USB. We're going to touch design. We're going to touch USB. You'll notice I've got multiple files on there. We're going to find the one that we want. So I'm going to scroll down because what I'm looking for is the H test. So I'm going to touch H. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is plus folder. So what we're telling it is from the thumb drive, we chose this design and we're going into one of the folders in the machine. Now you have what's called either the design folder or the user folder. My advice, as much as possible, use the user folder. This is limited to 99 designs, where this is basically unlimited. So we go to there, it's going into room number 1, this design into the machine folder and save, and it literally loads that fast. From there I'll hit previous. It's going to give me a preview screen. I can go to design right here, which will allow me to rotate the angle number 3 if I chose to. I'm going to leave it at 0 the way it is. If I wanted to change it, I would do touch 180, and you would see it would change upside down. I want to leave it at 0. I'm going to click OK and close. Now I'm going to program my needles. This test is for all 15 needles on the machine. We're testing it for the first time. This is also used as a tension test, so you know if you got your bobbin tension set correctly for an auto adjusting system. I'm simply going to program this in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. I'm going to hit close. And then from here I can either load and make it active, or I can use the save. The save feature is nice. Do you want to save the changes to this design? If I hit yes, remember it's going into room number 1. That design from the USB, it's already been loaded. If I hit yes, it actually retains the information of the angle and the colors that I sewed for later use. Now I hit load, and it's the active design that pulls up. So you'll notice right now it's setting at 180 degrees upside down. If I want to change that back, I'm going to go to setting, and under design there's the 180. Tell it OK, and then close. You'll see that now it's at 0 degree angle. Just keep in mind that all hats sew upside down on all machines. Anything bulky or big that needs to hang off the machine, like towels, you're going to sew upside down as well. Next is the needles, but remember we've already programmed those in the shortcut screen. But if you wanted to change them, you go to needle. Then the most important function there is whatsoever is the trace feature of the machine, which we're going to pause, position our hoop, and then we're going to be ready to sew once we do our trace. Okay, now that we're repositioned, I've got me a hoop on the machine. Now keep in mind this is the 18 centimeter hoop that comes inside your machine. This is the one we do our test sew outs with. This is 2.5 ounce, cutaway backing. That's pretty much the standard in the industry. Make sure it covers the entire hoop, 2 layers. It's compression hoop, adjust before. Make sure it's always the drum effect. Even during normal embroidery, it's got to be nice and tight. It's going to go on the machine and clips into place. Okay. Now from there I need to position. So what I can do is I can either use the manual buttons here, or I can use the position here on the touchscreen. On either one there's a speed button in the center that is indicated here on the top left hand corner. So H is for high speed, low speed, and medium speed. Most of the time I like to leave it on medium. From here I'm simply positioning so that I'm in the center of the hoop. Now a little trick on any machine that has more than 12 needles in it, okay, is if you position 1 in the center, 11 will be over top the Phillips head screw on the left hand side center. Now if you notice I get an error limit detection here. This is because the machine's limit is set. So I'm going to hit limit cancel. I'm going to show you why it did that. I'm going to go into frame. This is where we do our tracing feature. So remember, we've already loaded the design, we changed the angle, we programmed the colors, and the most important part is to trace. So we're going to go to frame. Okay, we'll see our design is here on the screen. If I actually go to hoop and then I choose flat and 18 centimeter that it was on, so you'll notice it says, do you want to change? Now keep in mind, if you ever do use any of your hoop features whatsoever, the most important thing is that the hoop or cap driver is not on the machine, because it will move to the position of where the center of that should be. Most of the time we're simply using the default function, therefore it's unlimited. We trace, we position, we sew anywhere that we want on the machine. So again, with the hoop on, I'm going to close that now that I'm on default. I'm going to position the needle 11 screw over the Phillips head screw on the left hand side center of the hoop, to the left of SWF right there. Make sure you're on needle 1. This is where the laser is, and this will put you dead center of any round hoop or even the large hoops when you put it on the machine. So from there, I'm going to go to the frame, and you got two choices. We have the trace feature, or we have the outline. I normally recommend the outline as it traces the exact outline of the logo. You'll notice the perimeter is larger. It's actually about 10 millimeters, so you can actually zoom that down with the zoom button so it's exact. Okay, and then from there you're going to hit here. This is the play button, and you'll notice what it's going to do, and it's visual. You still watch it. Once I hit play, it says outline trace. Do you want to start? Yes. And I'm watching to make sure that that fits completely inside of the hoop that I'm sewing. If it doesn't, if you're in the wrong position, reposition. But if it does not fit, you have 3 choices and only 3. The first one is a bigger hoop. The second one, a smaller design. The third one is don't do it, because you're going to damage the equipment. We're going to close to get out of there. If you notice from the factory, my speed is set at 1,000. I'm actually going to slow that down for my first test sew out. Probably somewhere around the 750, 800 mark. So the machine's set up, we're threaded, bobbins in, cap driver is off, all connections are good, steps to production, load design, change the angle, needles, most importantly trace and outline trace with the play button on the side. From there, your start and stop buttons are down here on your manual keypad to start, and then you would hit start, and it's going to move into position and start sewing the first logo. A good example here, if you notice, everything is moving, everything's perfect and fine, but the machine is not sewing. This is on purpose. Back up is simply the stop button. We'll back up to the beginning of the design, or you push start to back up 1 stitch at a time. It's not sewing because the head switch is not on. Red light always has to be on. Now that it's on, now the needle's going to go up and down